In the dead of night, the city of Busan sleeps, unaware of the horror that unfolded within its quiet streets. Your next fare approaches your cab, her presence unsettling. She carries a suitcase, its contents unknown to you, yet its weight seems to burden her soul. Destined to a secluded wooded area near the Nakdong River, you feel the air thick with tension, the kind that precedes a storm. As you drive through the sleeping city, the silence between you is deafening. Your instincts scream that something is amiss, but it's not your place to question a fare. Upon reaching the remote destination, she exits, and so do you. You help her unload her suitcase. She eventually disappears into the darkness of the night. You get back into your cab and look at your hands. They are covered in blood. In a state of panic, you contact the authorities, a decision that would reveal a crime that would shake South Korea to its core. This was the case for Mr. A on the 26th of May, 2023 in Busan, South Korea. A crime unfolded that would send ripples of fear and distrust throughout society. At the heart of this unsettling case was a girl who, to most, appeared unremarkable and easily overlooked. Yet, her involvement in the events that transpired would challenge the community's sense of security and trust in ways few could have anticipated. Described by a sentencing judge as a crime that spread fear in society that one can become a victim for no reason, the case stood as a grim reminder of the unpredictable nature of violence. It incited a general distrust among the public, suggesting that the veneer of normalcy can sometimes conceal the most disturbing realities. To preface this case, I would like to state that, due to South Korea's strict privacy laws, the public is not given access to a great deal of information regarding the trial, victims, witnesses, and suspects, and other relevant facts surrounding the case. I was able to get a significant amount of information from the official investigation report and some objective news articles, but a lot of it was translated directly from Korean. I'd also like to apologize in advance for any mispronunciation of names and locations, as I do not speak Korean. Now, let's lift the thin veil. Busan, South Korea's second largest city, is a vibrant metropolis where culture thrives amidst the backdrop of its bustling ports and scenic beaches. Known for its rich history and as a haven for refugees during the Korean War, Busan has evolved into a cultural powerhouse, hosting Asia's largest film festival and being recognized by UNESCO in its Creative City Network as a City of Film. It's also referred to in one of my favorite recent films called Train to Busan. The city's commitment to culture is evident in projects like the Totatoga, which revitalizes the history downtown through citizen participation in arts and culture, fostering a sense of community pride and economic rejuvenation. Despite its cultural accolades, Busan grapples with a darker side. With a violent crime rate of 409 cases per 100,000, it stands out for its unusually high crime rate in South Korea, contrasting sharply with its cultural vibrancy. Jeong Yoo-Jeong, a 23-year-old resident of Busan, described by those around her as reserved and distant, led a life marked by solitude. Her journey began in a fractured family, with her mother leaving early on and her father later incarcerated. The early instability set the stage for Jeong's reclusive nature. High school peers barely noticed her, often overlooking her attempts at interaction, a clear sign of her struggle with social connections. Jeong's digital footprint reflected her offline isolation, with her phone revealing a stark absence of communication, other than exchanges with her father and the eventual victim. An investigation into her family history unveiled a series of misfortunes: her parents' early divorce, her father's subsequent legal battles leading to imprisonment, and the dashed hopes of familial reconciliation when he chose to start anew with another partner. Feeling abandoned after her father remarried, Jeong's life spiraled further. She reported him for domestic violence, a plea that echoed her deep-seated betrayal. Post-high school, her path remained stagnant, unemployment and unfulfilled ambitions weighing heavily on her. An incident where Jeong threatened a potential employer over a rejected job application highlighted her growing desperation and disconnect. Residing with her grandfather on a limited income, Jeong turned to the civil service exams, a common yet daunting route to stable employment in South Korea. Her failure to pass these exams added to her distress, exacerbating feelings of anger and resentment rooted in tumultuous upbringing and personal failures. This cocktail of emotions, intertwined with a psychopathic personality, may have propelled her towards the crime. Amidst this turmoil, Jeong found solace in an unusual hobby, a deep fascination with true crime. This interest, while seemingly benign, hinted at a more complex inner world, a refuge from her own troubled reality, yet also a reflection of the darker narratives she was drawn to. The story that would come to captivate and horrify a nation began to unfold around March. Jeong, driven by motives that would soon become the subject of widespread shock and speculation, turned to a private tutoring app, a platform designed to connect parents with tutors for their children. Under the guise of a mother seeking education for her 2 middle school-age children, she embarked on a sinister quest. Over the course of 3 months, she attempted to arrange meetings with over 50 people, a relentless pursuit that finally resulted in one agreeing to meet. The depth of Jeong's dark intentions later surfaced through police investigations, revealing a series of alarming online searches. Queries such as "how to conceal a body" and "parricide" hinted at the grim path she was considering. Her intentions momentarily slipped into the open during a heated argument with her father, where she ominously declared that she was about to, quote, "do something big," a move so drastic, she insinuated, that even her own father would find it unbearable. Adding to the layers of this disturbing plan, Jeong's fascination with the macabre became increasingly evident. Her consumption of true crime content and crime-themed literature surged, painting a picture of someone deeply engrossed in the mechanics of criminal acts. It was clear that this was not a spur-of-the-moment decision. Rather, Jeong had been nurturing these dark thoughts for a considerable time, meticulously planning a deed that would leave a dark stain on the nation. Before we continue, a reminder that the victim's information was mainly kept a secret in this case because of South Korea's stringent privacy rules. The only accurate detail about her that has come to light is that she was a 26-year-old college student. Some online amateur detectives have speculated that she could have come from an English-speaking nation due to her great grasp of the language. Nevertheless, this supposition has not received any formal confirmation. Jeong had scheduled a meeting with the victim at the victim's residence in Gyeongju, Busan metropolitan city, on the evening of May 26, 2023. Oddly enough, although she was pretending to be a middle school student and even going so far as to buy a school uniform from a flea market, she had claimed to be the prospective student's mother in her chats with the victim. Nonetheless, considering that a police officer is quoted as saying Jeong is petite and with the uniform on, the victim probably confused her for a middle school student. It makes sense why the victim would not have questioned Jeong's age and deceptively acceptable appearance in a middle school uniform. Jeong would show up at the victim's residence at approximately 5:30 p.m. It is unknown what happened right before she arrived at the victim's door and events leading up to the attack, but when Jeong pulled out her knife, it is said that she stabbed the victim over 110 times, both in non-fatal areas like her hands and palms, and in crucial spots near important organs. This brutal onslaught continued after the victim passed away. After Jeong was done stabbing the victim, she decided to first cut the victim's fingers in an effort to conceal the victim's identity, but she eventually came to the conclusion that this was insufficient in case the victim was found. She then decided to change from her bloodied clothing to the victim's, and decided to go home to get a suitcase. It is said that Jeong made an electronic payment to purchase bin bags, bleach, and an additional, more robust knife on her way back. Ironically, you would think that as a true crime enthusiast, she would have understood what a paper trail was. But it could be that she was in a panicked fight-or-flight state. When Jeong got back to the victim's residence, she started dismembering the victim and shoving the pieces into the suitcase and bin bags. Here, you can see footage that officials released. She walks casually back to the victim's apartment after murdering her. And then out of the victim's apartment. presumably with her in the suitcase. At around 3 the following morning, Jeong descended the stairs with the intention of hailing a taxi to dispose of the remains in the Nakdong River, approximately 20 kilometers north of Busan. When Jeong arrived at her destination, she proceeded towards the river with her suitcase and bin bags full of body parts and left them in a wooded area near the river. There is speculation that Jeong was unable to physically carry the weight to the river, although there is no official confirmation of this. The phone call to the police was made by the taxi driver that had dropped her off initially after he became suspicious. There are two possible explanations for why the taxi driver became suspicious in the end. The first and more widely accepted theory holds that once Jeong got out of the taxi, the driver assisted her in getting the bag out of the vehicle. When he got back inside, he saw that his hands were stained with blood, so he called the police right away. According to the second theory, after picking her up from the victim's apartment, the taxi driver had helped Jeong put the suitcase in the car. When they got to their destination, he waited for Jeong to return from the woods, and when he did, he helped Jeong put the suitcase back in the car and noticed it was much lighter. The second theory seems to be unlikely, since the investigation report did mention the police finding a suitcase near the river, but I felt it was worth mentioning. At 6 a.m. on May 29th, the police arrived at Jeong's house. At this point, they were already aware of the suitcase in the woods near the Nakdong River, containing parts of the victim's body and bloodied clothes. Reports state that Jeong complained of abdominal pain and was subsequently taken to a hospital under police supervision. However, doctors found no medical cause for her discomfort, and she was promptly arrested after testing. Jeong underwent a mental state evaluation, during which her psychopath index was initially estimated at 28 points, higher than the 27 points of notorious serial killer Kang Hoo-soon. However, her index slightly fell to 26.3 points later during the prosecution investigation. It's important to note that Jeong was never officially diagnosed by a health professional. Throughout the investigation, Jeong's statements to the police frequently changed. Initially, she claimed to have only moved the body after someone else killed the woman, and later asserted that the killing had occurred as a result of an argument. Ultimately, she confessed that her interest in committing murder had been sparked by crime shows and TV programs, stating that she wanted to see how murder felt. Jeong Yoo-Jeong's legal journey began with her indictment for the murder and dismemberment of the victim. She attended her first trial preparation on the 14th of July 2023, accompanied by a private attorney, where she claimed that the crime was not premeditated. During the second preparation session on the 28th, she changed her stance but referred to poor mental health, yet admitted to the act. Even though her identity has been revealed to the public, her defense requested a closed trial. The court considered these requests and set the first official trial date for the 18th of September. Citing hallucinations and other mental illnesses at the time, Jeong had admitted to the murder and begged for a lighter punishment. Her allegation of a mental and physical disease was, however, dismissed by the court, which considered the crime to have been well planned and carried out, and found it impossible to believe her. They also observed that she had been inconsistent in her statements to the police, saying at first that she had moved the body only after the woman was killed by someone else, and later that the killing had been the consequence of an altercation. According to investigations, it was discovered that Jeong had made 2 prior attempts to kill and nearly met the 2 people she intended to harm. The first failed because of the large number of possible witnesses on the trail she intended to follow for the murder, and the second because the intended victim became suspicious of Jeong's communications. In a move that South Korea hasn't seen since 1997, prosecutors had initially asked for the death penalty, but Jeong was given a life sentence by the Busan District Court on November 24, 2023 for killing and defiling a corpse. She also had a 30-year requirement as part of her sentence to wear a location tracking device. Upon sentencing, a judge in the Busan District Court stated that the killing had spread fear in society that one can become a victim for no reason, and incited a general distrust among the community. In the Korean media, she would be dubbed as the curiosity killer. The case sparked complaints against the government for not having the processes to take care of people who were socially excluded, and also complaints that Korean movies and shows encouraging violence being the reason why people commit violent crimes. Lee Soo-Jeong, a criminal psychology professor at Kyonji University, suggested that the purpose of the crime may have been stealing the victim's identity. He further explained, the victim was a popular tutor on the app. The suspect seems to have tried to steal the victim's identity by murdering her as a way to overcome the sense of inferiority. He also said to a Korean news channel, I think we can say that Jeong wanted to have what the tutor had, such as her social status and academic background, and that is why she chose the victim. An article citing investigators claims that Jeong suffered from an inferiority complex due to her limited command of the English language, which may have hindered her ability to pass exams and obtain employment. A Korean publication cited a police official as saying the suspect seems to have felt inferior in her English skills while studying for a civil service exam and hunting for a job. It was unclear how taking on the victim's identity would benefit Jeong in terms of the exam or a job. So, what do you think of this case? It's evident that Jeong was a deeply troubled individual, and her lack of a strong support network of friends and family did not help the situation. It is evident that she had a difficult childhood, which may have had an impact on her personality. It's also very clear that she felt she was headed nowhere in life based on her academic failures and lack of employment prospects. Was it resentment? A desire to steal someone else's identity in order to cover up her own transgressions? Or was it genuinely an instance of someone attempting to satisfy their own sick curiosity? Whatever your feelings are, do leave your thoughts down below. And if you want to hear more such stories, please do like, comment, and subscribe. It really does help the channel. Until next time, I've been the Thin Veil.